mk4 Supra is my favorite generation, and today we're going to talk about everything you want to know about it. This has, like, in my opinion, one of the most iconic Japanese engines under the hood. I won't say that they're completely bulletproof, because people like me, I'll break anything. I don't care. You know, it was so advanced and like strong. They built it to handle the power, plus a lot more than it came with from the factory.
Well, and so I think that was interesting because, you know, the whole Japanese 90s gentleman's agreement was to basically limit their cars to a certain top speed and then limit their power output to a certain power output. And most of them were looking at roughly 180 kilometers an hour and 300-ish horsepower. Some of these manufacturers, a lot of them, they underrated their engines so they could get around that. But even back then, you look at what Toyota was doing with these JZ platforms, both the 1JZ and the 2JZ, and they were vastly over-engineered for what they were putting out from the factory. I was actually having this conversation the other day with one of my friends. I can't think of a single other engine, certainly a 30-year-old engine, where you can take a factory block and legitimately triple the horsepower and still have it running reliably on the road. You know, to have a car that came with 320 horsepower to the crank and be able to push it on a stock block over 900 and still have it live and be happy is not something that you can say out of most platforms. So one of the things that I think is really cool about the 2JZ is you're taking a 30-year-old engine design, old school iron block, you know, forged internals from the factory, and you're putting modern injectors on it. You're putting modern turbos on it. So you're increasing its ability to consume both air and fuel.
Yeah.
And that really affects how efficiently these things run, because let's be honest, turbo technology is not what it was 10 years ago, let alone 30 years ago. And that's a huge factor in how efficiently these engines run. I think it's a determining factor on why they've held up for so well. So the engine block was engineered well, but simply I think the technology has just come such a long way since all of that turbo and injector technology was introduced. 10 years ago, you couldn't run a 1700 to 2000 cc injector on a street car without it having run idling rough and crazy, and here we are rolling around in a 1750 cc injector at 40 miles an hour, and it's comfortable. It's happy to just roll down the road in third gear and not be struggling at all. So this is another like fun little useless fact about this car, useful fact depending on what you want to know, but this had the 100-foot braking record when it came out from 1993, and it kept that record for almost a decade. Do you know what car beat that? Do you know what car it took to break the Supra braking record? It was the Porsche GT.
Wow.
These cars were so different when they came out from everything else in the early 90s. In fact, I think one of the reasons that this car is so iconic is because it was not well received. Car and Driver described it as round and alien looking, and it was too bubbleless, and an era where everything was squared off and boxy, and people didn't like it. This car didn't sell well because for the market in the early 90s, it was overpriced. It was competing against cars that on paper looked much better spec-wise, and it didn't have the look that people were looking for. People were coming off of the 1980s and the Ferrari F40s, and they were coming off of the Lamborghini Countach. So this was such a different look than anything else that was coming squared and angular and boxy. And so they didn't make as many of them as a result. You're seeing more of them in right-hand drive because they're finally of the right age to import.
Right.
So if you're looking for price per dollar, you're looking for the best bang for your buck, I would say go with the right-hand drive. A lot of people in the traditional Supra community don't like the right-hand drives as much. The only reason people prefer the left-hand drives to the right-hand drives is there's just less of them. From a driver standpoint, if you don't mind sitting on the other side of the car, it's the exact same car. It's got the same performance capabilities and it can do all the same things. They produced about 12,000 of these left-hand drive for the entire production run of the Mark IVs, and they produced about 34,000 in the right-hand drive. So there were just about 3 times as many of the right-hand drive. So as a result, they're a little easier to get a hold of now that they're being legalized to import. The purists will say, oh my gosh, get a left-hand drive because, you know, it's the one to have. Get the turbo, get, you know, the manual. This car started out as a 97 twin turbo auto. I mean, this wasn't even a manual car to start with. So
oh, right on.
with the Granis 6-speed in it, it does fine. But if you're looking for something that you can build over time, get yourself a right-hand drive. Get yourself an auto if you have to. Get yourself an NA if you have to.
Yeah.
Because all of those parts you can change out. You can swap. You can add a turbo to it if you want to go that route. You can go with a manual setup like I did on this car that started out life as an auto. So it really depends on what your budget is and what you can find.
So, and now here we are in a right-hand drive mk4 Supra. Just like Matt was talking about before, there's nothing wrong with the right-hand drive NA Supra. This one's also NA, and I'm here with another Matt. I reviewed a 77 Celica with a 1UZ swap a while back, and Matt's actually the husband of Emily, the owner of that car. In fact, he was barely in that video. I figured what better way than to go on a drive in a right-hand drive version of these cars. The 2J that they put in the NA models are pretty much the same as the turbo models minus the turbo. Still has the same bottom end, right?
Yeah, so basically bottom end identical, lack of oil squirters is really the only thing in the early GEs. Cylinder head is completely different. The exhaust manifold spacing is different. Pretty sure the intake manifold spacing is different too. I'm not 100%. Whenever you NAT them, you've got to use specific NAT manifolds. It's not like you can just bolt a GTE manifold to a GE head. The easiest way to do it is just throw a GTE head on it, but the price, you know, mk4 tax and GTE swaps aren't what they used to be.
And when you keep the same 2J NA head on it, they still make great power when you turbo them. There's nothing wrong with that either. You don't have to go out and buy a 2J GTE head to make the power.
No, what's wild is the GE head actually flows better than the GTE head.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy when
That's
it boils down to it, yeah. So NA, I mean, when I bought this car, the whole goal was to, in the end, have a turbo Supra. When I picked this one up, it was to scratch off another bucket list car, and I actually wanted this specific model. You know, I wanted an NA manual car. My only checks in the boxes were it had to be rust-free, decent paint, NA manual. That's all I wanted. I wasn't too concerned about the hate between the left-hand drive, right-hand drive owners. I mean, at the end of the day, when it all boils down to it, it's a mk4. It's still a mk4. It's still a Supra.
Yeah.
You know, it's an iconic car that everybody growing up, the first Fast and the Furious made it that, you know, and it's everywhere you go. It's still, oh, sick Supra. I don't understand the absolute hate from some of the left-hand drive owners to the right-hand drive cars. I mean, I kind of get what they're saying as far as like, oh, they're coming in and flooding the market and making our cars less valuable, or they're talking about how it's not, you know, a real Supra or stupid stuff like that. I don't know. I think it's stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
I knew I wasn't going to find a left-hand drive car for anywhere what I wanted to spend, and I didn't want to pay the GTE tax for something I was just going to rip apart anyway.
You're seeing more and more of that now where people are doing, you know, NAT swaps because they may not have the budget to buy a car like this outright, and the spec on these cars matters. I mean, if you're looking for a left-hand drive turbo manual car, if you can find one, you're gonna pay well above the $100,000 mark. And if it's the right color or the right mileage, there are examples of these cars selling for over $180,000, which is kind of
wild.
Crazy to me for a car that only cost $40,000 when it was brand new.
Anytime I saw a Supra, I would tell my friends about it. It wasn't like one of those things where it was just another car. You didn't see them a whole lot.
Right.
They're so iconic. I love the tail lights on them. I love the back end on it. The TRD wing that you have on this is super sick. I also like the factory bubble wing.
It definitely adds a little bit of character to it, and it gives it just a little bit slightly different appearance than you got from the factory, but it's not so far off base that it doesn't still look like the Supra look, which I think is awesome and iconic.
It looks like it belonged on there.
Most of them came with the rounder wing, and just to have something a little bit squared off kind of gives a little bit of contrast. I think the big thing that people forget about these cars, they want, you know, this super cool JDM Legend. It's still a car that's 30 years old. So you're gonna have a lot of hidden costs that you don't expect that are not exciting things to replace or repair. For example, on this car, I had no under tray underneath the engine bay. Is that a requirement for performance? No, but I want to keep the engine clean. I want to keep the road debris out from underneath it. I don't want to run over something and get it shoved up in there and have potential damage going on. I went with the Dula Designs under tray, which unfortunately you never see unless it's sitting on the lift, but it's a work of art. It's an aluminum under tray. I get a little bit better airflow into both the intake and the intercooler because of the way it's routing air. The aftermarket for these cars is phenomenal. There's a lot of companies now, if Toyota's not making it, they will make the parts for it in their own versions or own iterations of it.
So thanks for coming back again to film part 2 of this awesome Supra. Like I said in the first video, 1 video was not enough for this car, and honestly 2 videos isn't either.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. Any day you get to get out and drive is a good day with me. So
Nice.
Thanks for having me.
That is ignorant. That is ignorant power right there. Tunnel time. Matt is the wife of the... No, that's...
Husband of,
Yeah.
of the woman with the Celica.
Speaking of that, I'm going to go ahead and move... Speaking of that, let's move on over to this side of the car and Matt's... Damn.
Bummed. This thing rides like a brick with the wheels.
Up, cop's popping his hood. Let's see what he got. What you got, man?
I'm gonna hit the gas.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, it said no revving,
You got like a sleeper nitrous kit under the intake manifold or what?
Can't talk about all that.
All right. Thanks again to both of the Matts for letting us compare and talk about both of these beautiful Mark IV Supras. It was so much fun and super cool. Up next, I'm so excited to compare the K-Series and B-Series engines in these two Civics. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.